Yachts for Sale YouTube channel, opening a window into the world of yacht brokerage. And today we talk about refueling a super yacht using vegetable oil. A few months ago, I had the honour of being the MC at an event called the Sustainable Yacht Summit, held at the Monaco Yacht Club. Now, the general manager of the yacht club, Bernard D'Alessandri, is passionate about making the Principality of Monaco a leader in sustainable yachting. Monaco is in fact known as the capital of advanced yachting for exactly that reason. They hold an event called the Energy Boat Challenge that brings students from all over the world together to compete with their designs of alternative energy boats. It's an amazing event, as was the Sustainable Yacht Summit, which saw the world's leading yacht designers and yacht builders coming together with tech companies and innovators to discuss how yachting can be more environmentally friendly. Anyway, during the event, somebody mentioned HVO fuel, and I nodded sagely as if I knew what they were talking about, but in reality I had no idea at all. It turns out that HVO fuel is essentially vegetable oil that has been hydro-treated. That was interesting. But when Feadship announced that they would be sea trialling their next yacht with HVO fuel, Feadship, we're not talking about some small startup company, we're talking about arguably the most prestigious and very historic yacht builder in the world, a company that regularly launches yachts with values well in excess of $100 million. They are using hydro-treated vegetable oil in their sea trials. So I decided that I really had to learn more about this fuel, and I ended up going down somewhat of a rabbit hole. To start with, I learned that HVO fuel should not be confused with biofuel. Biofuel has been around for at least 20 years and still has some drawbacks to using it. HVO fuel, on the other hand, is quite different. One of the big producers of HVO is Neste, not the chocolate people, but an enormous fuel producer who turned over 25.7 billion euros in sales last year. They're based in Finland and are heavily invested in producing HVO, and with good reason. We're already at the stage where every major marine engine builder, including Caterpillar, MAN, the big organisations, will allow the use of HVO fuel as long as it meets specific requirements, which Neste and other suppliers do. If you use HVO fuel on your yacht, you can use just HVO, you can mix it with normal diesel, you can switch back and forth between diesel and HVO, a separate fuel tank is not required, and most engine chain components such as filters will be compatible. If you're listening to this, own a yacht or captain a yacht and are unsure as to whether you can use it, you just need to check with your engine manufacturer and they will let you know. It's now claimed that using HVO fuel can reduce carbon emissions by up to 90%, as well as having a significant reduction in nitrogen oxide and sulfur dioxide. Emissions of those are zero. Sulfur dioxide is responsible for the unpleasant odour of carbon emissions. I wanted to get in touch with Feadship to understand what sort of research they had done into HVO fuel, and so I spoke to their head of research and development, Guido Leff. He told me that, first of all, they tried to understand as a company how yacht owners were using their yachts. If building the yacht was creating more greenhouse gases than using the yacht, then the construction process would need to be examined first. Not surprisingly, they found that in a 30-year life cycle of a yacht, the burning of fossil fuels were responsible for 96% of emissions. This may seem obvious, but I have to admire the thorough approach that they took. They then conducted extensive research on HVO fuels. They didn't want to use fuels that used 1,000 litres or 1,000 gallons of fossil fuels at the refinery stage to then manufacture 1,000 litres of gallons of HVO fuel. That would be nuts. So they chose an HVO fuel that they could trace the entire manufacturing process of. The conversation became especially interesting when Guido mentioned the ETS, or the Emissions Trading System. The ETS is an EU legislation that at the moment governs ships of over 5,000 gross tonnes. The system makes the ships responsible for reporting on the kind of fuel that they are using, the distance and speed they have travelled, and an estimate is made of the emissions they have produced. If you exceed your allowed emissions, the penalties are really quite severe. Now in 2025, this will be applied to vessels of over 400 gross tonnes, with a view to them being fully part of the ETS in 2027. We don't know for sure yet if pleasure vessels such as yachts will be included, but there are a lot of yachts over 400 gross tonnes. So if they are included, it will have quite some impact on the yachting industry, and many yacht owners may opt to use HVO as a good alternative to fossil fuels at that point. I asked Guido what Feadship is doing beyond just running a sea trial with HVO fuel, and they are very engaged in encouraging their owners to use this type of fuel as well. I inquired with him if he was having any success with it, and he answered emphatically yes, as the company has owners who utilise HVO fuel. One's just crossed the Atlantic on his yachts using that type of fuel. They also assist Feadship owners in conducting due diligence to ensure that the fuel that they're purchasing is properly sourced and produced, and they assist their owners in locating HVO suppliers. When I asked him if he thought that other yacht manufacturers will follow in their footsteps, he immediately responded, absolutely. Benetti Azimut has made a similar pledge. In fact, when I looked into that, I discovered that Benetti Azimut works closely with ENI. If you've ever been to Italy, you'll recognise the name and the logo. They have fuel stations all over the country. Benetti Azimut, being Italian, has called the fuel HVolution. If anybody from Benetti's marketing department is listening, can I just say, fantastic initiative. Terrible name, but great initiative. They're not only using HVolution fuel for future sea trials, but they're also collaborating with ENI to build an infrastructure that will eventually make this type of fuel more widely available. Shell Oil now has refineries for HVO fuel. It really does look like it has a great future. Now, all of the information I've given you so far is from Super Yacht Times and other sources in the yachting industry. And of course, we want to talk positively about anything that puts super yachts in a positive light. I wanted to dive even deeper down the rabbit hole though, so I found this 20-page report by the ACS, or the American Chemical Society. I had no idea who the ACS was until a few months ago, but then I had no idea what HVO fuel was. The ACS has over 173,000 members from over 140 countries. They were founded in 1876, and their mission statement includes their desire to employ chemistry for the benefit of the environment and the planet. They are truly impartial, large-scale organisation with no dog in this fight. They simply want to know whether HVO fuel is a viable option. I didn't understand everything that I read, but here are some of the ideas and concepts that I did grasp. They say that HVO fuel is a low-cost, short-term answer to lowering greenhouse gas emissions. They conducted a full life cycle analysis, including feedstock production. By the way, feedstock is what they're using to make the fuel. It's largely used cooking oil, also known as waste cooking oil. So they looked at where the raw materials were coming from, since they didn't want rainforests to be cut down to manufacture this. Consequently, they examined feedstock production, refineries and refinements, engine combustion efficiency, and concluded that there is a significant reduction in greenhouse emissions. They claim to save 30% to 80% compared to typical fossil fuels. They went on to explain that there might be more advantages that they haven't even considered thoroughly. One of the things that sparked my interest in this report was how they broke down the emission gases into all of the individual gases and then reported on the reduction in each individual gas, as well as how at the end they mentioned there may be even more harmful gases that will also be reduced, but they haven't looked into that yet. So there's an impartial source stating how wonderful HVO fuel is. They mentioned it as a short-term solution, which is because, like fossil fuel, HVO fuel is a finite source of energy. However, it is a short-term solution for which there appears to be very little justification for not using. There are essentially two justifications and reasons why people are not using it. One disadvantage is that it is significantly more expensive than normal fossil fuels. However, in the Netherlands, for example, the government will subsidise the use of HVO fuel. They do not in other countries. The other is that it requires some work to find a supplier and deliver it to your yacht. So this really is a question of money and effort. Nevertheless, Feadship has spent the money and put in the effort. Benetti is spending the money and making the effort. Currently, I'm aware that a lot of boat captains watch this channel, and I also know that a lot of yacht owners and yacht builders watch it. So in conclusion, I would advise you not to take my word for it. I don't expect you to watch this video and immediately go out and get some HVO fuel. But if you're an owner or a builder, have your engineering department or your engineer look into it. Find out what the engine manufacturers suggest and conduct some preliminary research. No single individual is going to make a huge gesture that will solve the problem of sustainability in yachting. It will be solved by hundreds, if not thousands of people taking small measures. And this is one such step. In other news from the Yachts for Sale YouTube channel, I'm pleased to tell you that I have now taken action over the amount of emails I receive from viewers who want to become yacht brokers. Some even offer to work with me for free if I will mentor them. I'm not always able to respond to those emails, so over the last year I have developed an online course that is without a doubt the most complete and comprehensive online course teaching you all of the essentials that you need to know to become a yacht broker. I'll be telling you more about that in the coming weeks, but in the meantime you can take a look at the website yachtbrokermasterclass.com in a link in the description below. Done. Was that better the second time than the first time?